Hola a todos, bienvenidos una vez más a Be Wanna Builder. Me emociona compartir con ustedes el tema de hoy. Sé que este contenido será de gran valor para su desarrollo profesional. Recuerden que nuestro compromiso es ofrecerles lo mejor sobre SAP. Prepárense para aprender y llevar sus nuevos conocimientos a la práctica. Comenzamos.
Muy buenos días, señoras y señores. Déjame aquí, Alexa, enciende celular. Quiero reaccionar junto a ustedes a un video que publicó Rainer Zinow desde Alemania. Entonces, lo vamos a escuchar en inglés, pero está la traducción en español. Vamos a dejar, son 30 minutos. Vamos a dejar que avance unos minutos, hago una pausa, comento. ¿Por qué? Porque este tema es importante, ¿va? Este tema es muy importante para el ecosistema SAP Business One. Y estoy reaccionando a este video que está en inglés, pero reaccionando en español, por supuesto, para que podamos tener claros, para que podamos hablar allí de lo que está pasando, ¿no? ¿Les parece bien? Ok, entonces comencemos. Esperen.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my annual presentation on what is happening in the world of SAP, specifically in the field of the mid-market portfolio. My name is Rainer Zinow, and exactly a year ago, I joined SAP's early retirement program.
Fíjense, primero, este tipo de videos a principio de año, perdón, este tipo de videos a principio de años siempre los hace Rainer. O sea, este no es el primer video, él siempre hace un video a principio de año para hablar de la estrategia de producto de Small and Medium Enterprise en adelante, ¿ok? O sea, que esto que está haciendo él ahora ya lo viene haciendo todos los años. Y como dice ahí, su nombre es Rainer Zinow, quien está en un programa de jubilación anticipada dentro de SAP, o sea, trabaja parcialmente.
By now, I think I found a pretty good balance between picking up my granddaughter from kindergarten, doing some more sports, but also staying connected with you, my dear partners and customers.
Está diciendo que gracias a haberse unido a este programa de retiro adelantado, entonces él está disfrutando del equilibrio de la vida, ¿no? Ese equilibrio que te da tener tiempo para ir a recoger, en este caso a su nieta, en el jardín de infancias, pero también de hacer deportes y estar en contacto con los partners de SAP. Así que bueno, va por allí.
So, as always, for the next 30 years, I've collected those slides which I believe are very important for all of us to understand where SAP is going in the next couple of years. Therefore, a quick look at the disclaimer chart. This industry is changing fast, so whenever you take a decision, please always look at the latest roadmap information, which you find on sap.com.
Un aplauso para Rainer, porque bueno, un aplauso para él, porque después de 30 años de carrera, como él mismo lo está diciendo allí, vamos, o sea, son 30 años trabajando en SAP, empujando el producto, el negocio, dirigiendo al ecosistema en la estrategia, y hasta está haciendo aquí un disclaimer, ¿no? De que todo esto hoy es una cosa y mañana ya es otra, y que entonces cuando tengan que tomar decisiones van y buscan directamente la información en las páginas de SAP.com. Pero bueno, un aplauso para Rainer, de verdad. Yo tuve el placer de conocer a Rainer en persona en Alemania, en su oficina, bueno, no en su oficina, sino en una de las salas de juntas que hay allá en el edificio, no me acuerdo si era el building 29 o 49, pero bueno, es un edificio o 19, 29, 49, 39, por ahí va. Es un edificio muy emblemático porque ahí es donde se reúnen los socios, la gente de SAP Business One, tal, no sé qué. Así que bueno, tuve el placer de conocerlo junto a Simona Marinchey allá fue en Waldorf. Yo me hospedé en Waldorf varios días precisamente para ir a reunirme con ellos y a conocerlos. Así que un aplauso para ti, Rainer, y te deseo todo lo mejor, obvio, de aquí en adelante. Vamos, seguimos.
I'm deviating this year a little bit from the way how I presented in the last couple of years, and I put a strategy section at the beginning of this presentation because I believe it is very important where SAP is going, and you should understand the different aspects, specifically when it comes to artificial intelligence. And then obviously we dive into the product portfolio, be it S/4HANA Public Cloud, be it SAP Business One, and last but not least, SAP Business by Design. That said, here is the key visual for me of...
Él aquí, obvio, está haciendo una pequeña pausa para decir que cambió la estrategia de la presentación que él hace todos los años para poder hablar un poquito del tema estratégico para SAP.
The year 2025, because it visualizes that the three aspects, the application layer, the data layer, and the AI layer, are building up the bigger picture of the architecture. The application layer feeds data into the data layer, where we are working with a harmonized data model. Because artificial intelligence can only work if the data is correct and the semantics of the data are well understood. Therefore, these three elements are mission critical. There is no such thing like a standalone AI. AI only works in the context of the data layer. Also, when it comes to the data layer, you need to understand the entire semantics, and this is where SAP sets itself apart from many others in the industry. I was asked by one of my partners to talk to a customer.
Ya va, tengo un problema aquí. Probablemente se está escuchando doble. Probablemente. ¿Por qué? Porque se me está viniendo el audio del micro, de la tele. Entonces miren lo que voy a hacer. Para que esto quede bonito, ¿verdad? Para que esto quede bonito, voy a empezar de nuevo el video. No lo voy a interrumpir hasta este punto, pero lo voy a hacer con mi micrófono apagado.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my annual presentation on what is happening in the world of SAP, specifically in the field of the mid-market portfolio. My name is Rainer Zinow, and exactly a year ago, I joined SAP's early retirement program. By now, I think I found a pretty good balance between picking up my granddaughter from kindergarten, doing some more sports, but also staying connected with you, my dear partners and customers. So, as always, for the next 30 years, I've collected those slides which I believe are very important for all of us to understand where SAP is going in the next couple of years. Therefore, a quick look at the disclaimer chart. This industry is changing fast, so whenever you take a decision, please always look at the latest roadmap information which you find on sap.com. I'm deviating this year a little bit from the way how I presented in the last couple of years, and I put a strategy section at the beginning of this presentation because I believe it is very important where SAP is going, and you should understand the different aspects, specifically when it comes to artificial intelligence. And then obviously we dive into the product portfolio, be it S/4HANA Public Cloud, be it SAP Business One, and last but not least, SAP Business by Design. That said, here is the key visual for me of the year 2025, because it visualizes that the three aspects, the application layer, the data layer, and the AI layer, are building up the bigger picture of the architecture. The application layer feeds data into the data layer, where we are working with a harmonized data model. Because artificial intelligence can only work if the data is correct and the semantics of the data are well understood. Therefore, these three elements are mission critical. There is no such thing like a standalone AI. AI only works in the context of the data layer. Also, when it comes to the data layer, you need to understand the entire semantics, and this is where SAP sets itself apart from many others in the industry. I was asked by one of my partners to talk to a customer who was not exactly happy with SAP, and I said, why is this the case? And this customer told me, look, everybody is talking so much about artificial intelligence, and I hear close to nothing from SAP. And I said, from my perspective, this is not the situation, and therefore let me put a focus on artificial intelligence. Here you see a picture from last year's calendar with quotes of SAP executives. And here is one from 1987. Actually, one of the reasons why I joined SAP in 1991. Previously, I had written my master thesis about, you could call it first or second generation artificial intelligence topic. Back then, we talked about expert systems. And you see here a famous quote from Hasso Plattner, who says that Axel Kurka will run a new department to really be on top of all of that development. And SAP has always been working in this area of expert systems, artificial intelligence, machine learning. We kept our close relationship with the leading universities in that area. So everything that you see from SAP when it comes to artificial intelligence these days didn't fall from the sky. It's the result of really hard work. And this is one of the really busy slides, but it's important to talk about it for a minute or two. Here you see these three layers again, but broken down to a greater level of detail. And you see at the bottom, the application layer, where you have the financial management, the supply chain application, human resources, and so on and so on. This explicitly includes partner applications or applications that the customer has built on their own, because also that information is relevant for decision making, and you want to propagate it up to the data layer into the SAP Business Data Cloud, the key announcement of the year 2025, and then you can run the entire AI stack that I will talk about in a minute on top of the whole thing. One of the questions that I discussed with this customer was, well, where is the value add of artificial intelligence scenario? And to me, one of the aspects here is that artificial intelligence, and SAP coined the term Joule for this entire category of technologies, agents, services, that these capabilities help us to address real-world shortages. And the key shortage in my industry is time. It is time of the end user to get things done. It is time of the consultants to finish an implementation as fast as possible and help the next customer. And last but not least, it is time of the developers to really not waste time with trying to understand how does this code work, how would it be formulated in a better way. So what SAP does is SAP focuses on these three areas and applies artificial intelligence techniques into the user interface of its applications. And again, it is also the partners like MyWave who integrate their artificial intelligence capabilities into the user interface of SAP applications. What does this mean? The very old colleagues who are listening to this presentation may remember the R2 cards. These were long cue cards with lots of transaction codes on it. And the really experienced colleagues knew a lot of transaction codes by heart and all of the match codes. Imagine a world where you simply tell your system what you want it to do on your behalf. Create the same order that you did last week for this and this customer, but change the quantity of this article to that. Instead of entering /NVAO1 and then operating the user interface. So Joule within the application makes SAP applications a lot more accessible. The second aspect is Joule for consultants. SAP consultants are a very limited resource and actually quite expensive. So what SAP does is it trains existing large language models with content that is relevant for SAP consultants. And you can see that SAP used a lot of documents which are typically handled by our support organization and fed them into these models. Therefore, Joule for consultants becomes the most universal toolbox that an SAP consultant can use. And I can only ask all of the partners to really look into these capabilities. Especially for Business One and by Design partners, the good news is 90+% of all relevant information always was before in front of the firewall, which means when you ask, for example, ChatGPT or Gemini for a Business One related question, you will get quite precise answers. And last but not least, the time of developers is very short, especially if you're working in an environment where there is already a lot of code and you want to add something to it. Then to take Joule for developers, give it a block of, let's say, hundreds of lines of ABAP coding and ask Joule, explain to me what this business capability does. And you will be amazed what Joule can do for you. So Joule for developers or Gemini or all of the other environments are not only to produce new code, but also to refactor existing code and move that into the future. So these are the three real benefits that artificial intelligence drives in our industry. The customer asked me, well, why does it take SAP so long? In his perception, others were much faster. And one of my points was, if you look at this picture here, you have at the bottom all of the partnerships that SAP has with the AI ecosystem. And trust me, there's a lot of movement in this layer below. New players are coming in, others are leaving. Yesterday, a lot of people were laughing about Gemini. Today, a lot of the analysts say Gemini is the leading platform. And what is even more important is the pricing of these models changes nearly on a daily basis. So the difficult thing is if you build an application and you include prompts and you test the prompts against a specific large language model and you get it to work, that's great. But what do you do if suddenly a different model is significantly cheaper and may give you a better result? So what SAP has done is something truly amazing. It is an abstraction layer between the world of the applications and the world of the large language models. So that you can basically leave it up to that layer to say, pick the most appropriate model from a commercial standpoint, from an accuracy standpoint for me. And that is something which nobody else does. The next aspect is that, especially, and in the US we already had that for quite a number of years, that we had the dedicated topic of sovereign cloud. Therefore, SAP has an own entity in the US called NS2, and SAP is now implementing similar sovereign cloud capabilities in Europe and in Asia. This is very important, or this was very important for many of our customers in the public sector, but also large customers from other industries these days prefer to have a setup in a sovereign cloud environment in their region of the world. But that must include the AI capabilities. Therefore, all of the announcements that you've seen this year of SAP with Deutsche Telekom, with SAP and NVIDIA, with SAP and Google are mission critical that SAP can provide those customers who want a sovereign cloud, but with state-of-the-art AI technology. And this is why it sometimes seemed to take a bit longer for SAP to get these things done, but SAP does it in a really good and reliable way for you. So that said, today we have three categories of models. We have the large language models, which predict the next token, which may be a word or a sentence. You have the image models, which do an amazing job to predict the next pixel. And you have more and more of the video models, and this is not an AI-generated video. You have the video models which predict the next frame. But you can use these models now and try to apply them to real-world business cases. And then you will always find these predictive use cases, like delivery delay prediction, tax code prediction, sales order completion, or check if the VAT number for this and this customer is correct. And if you address these topics to the existing models, you will not be very successful. The results will not be good enough to use it in a business environment. Therefore, again, SAP spent a lot of time around the world with our own research organization, with leading research institutes like the one in Kaiserslautern or Stanford University or MIT, just to name a few, or the leading institutes in France. And we are doing published research work. And the key topic here for SAP was, how do we work in a world where we have a lot of structured relational data? So this development work led us to one of the key announcements for me this year, the availability of SAP Rapid One. Rapid One is a pre-trained SAP model specifically for the use cases which you saw on the previous slide, where SAP has access to a vast amount of anonymized customer data. Customers provided SAP with a consent to anonymize the data and then to train the model. So SAP ships a pre-trained model, SAP Rapid One, and this model helps you to predict your business future for the scenarios that are used. And how do you use it? And I can only recommend to all of you, please take the time and look at the recording of the TechEd presentation keynote by Mohammed Alam and Philipp Herzig and Michael Ammeling. And look at the demos, because in these demos you can really see how the nice theory of artificial intelligence now really generates value. And how do you use such a pre-trained model like RPT-1? And I took a screenshot here of the demo where the colleague explains, well, you simply have here in the middle call foundation model predict. That is where you invoke the model. And you just say, take that model, here is the input data, because it is pre-trained. You don't need to worry about all of the steps which in the machine learning world you had to do before. And then you can say, give me the prediction of the likelihood of this sales order, which sales order will close in Q4 as a number, and give that back to me in that table. And this is for me, one of the key areas where I recommend to all of my partners, get your hands around RPT1. There's even an SAP playground, which SAP established so that you can try it out. The second major announcement this year was that SAP comes back to the term business suite. For the old persons like myself, this is not a big surprise. SAP always has been about end-to-end business processes and making sure that the different applications work together. But we also had a time where we had more kind of line of business connotation. And integration, yes, was important, but was not at the center of the strategy. This has changed with this slide here. And I'm super happy that SAP basically is back to what most of the customers really want from SAP, and these are end-to-end business processes. Therefore, SAP delivers unparalleled applications, and also part of that discussion with this customer was when they said, well, how do you compare, for example, SAP and Microsoft? And my point was, all of the large players in the industry have really good solutions. But where SAP goes the extra mile are these end-to-end processes. Therefore, whenever somebody considers using an SAP solution, I always say, first look at the end-to-end processes. If you're using by design, use the Scenario Explorer. If you're using Business One, you find a lot of documentation about the processes. And if you're using S4, please familiarize yourself with Signavio and the end-to-end processes there, because that is what generates the real long-term value. And at the center of all of this, and I've said it in the previous years too, is S4HANA Public Cloud. Unfortunately, I don't have any time in this more mid-market focused presentation to talk about S4HANA Private and how we transition ECC customers over into the new world of S4. And S4 in itself would be a 3 hours long presentation. Therefore, I only took one slide, and a big thank you to Bert Schulze and his team for this amazing product expert training, which finally this year I had the time to really attend it. And I just took this slide here to show you the progression of S4HANA Public Cloud when it comes to the different categories, like how many languages are supported, how many countries are supported out of the box, the API layer, which is growing by the day. Even more important, the announcements of SAP to adhere to the A2A protocol and the model context protocol for the AI use cases and the newly shipped AI features. So S4HANA Public Cloud is growing fast, and I'm really happy also to see how many of my by design partners have their own S4HANA Public Cloud practices up and running these days. And as you can see from these numbers, it's a really good business. That said, let's go to the other side of the SME portfolio, SAP Business One. And that is, as always, amazing. Big thank you here to Darius and his team to publish a blog post, I think about a month ago, saying, hey, B1 wins 10 new customers every day. And that makes SAP Business One SAP's best-selling ERP solution by number of customers. 83,000 customers by now. You can read at all of the numbers. Also take a look at the SAP News article where you can find the link here at the bottom. B1 is really growing fast. And the key reason why B1 is growing so fast is the web client. We are coming to the end of the transition from the traditional Business One desktop client to the B1 web client, which you operate in a browser which follows the Fiori style paradigm, which uses the underlying SAP technology when it comes to user interface building, which we are also using for S4 or for by design. And the good news is we are now having, I would say, about 80% coverage of all of the business capabilities you can reach with a web client. So yes, there is the final stretch needs to be done, and SAP is on its way. And I had the opportunity to meet Swiss partners a month ago in Zurich. And what I really liked was that the partners now take their own extensions, like Core System with their country packages, like Phoenix Business Consulting with the applications that they are building. And they are building them on the same web client stack that SAP is using. So the secret sauce of Business One are all of the partner extensions, be it the one from Versino, be it the ones from Boyum, and all of the others. And it is super important for me to see that these partners are now picking up the web client and specifically the web client extensibility to get their extensions ready, because B1 can only be as powerful as we all want to have it if we have both the SAP B1 solution fully available on the web client, plus all of the relevant partner extensions also available on the web client. And here we are on a good way, and the UI API framework, and here a big thank you to all of my friends in Israel for the work that they are doing. Please use these capabilities to make your extensions available. And then we finished the planning phase for SAP Business One 11, which will be the successor of B1 version 10, which we now have in the market since quite a number of years. The good news is we are done with the UI. We are done with the business capabilities. The focus of B1 11 will be more on lifecycle management. And here you can see some of the topics that Peter Dominic and his team are calling out for B1 11, which you will then see probably in the time frame 2027-2028. So with that, my famous quote, B1 forever, here's the substance, and I'm super excited, and a big thank you to all of the partners, all of the alliances like the Linked World Alliance, to really make this product what it is today. Last but not least, Business by Design. Many of you know that I joined that product organization in 2003. You see the growth numbers here. They are not as fast growing as S4HANA Public Cloud, simply because S4HANA Public Cloud is the strategic solution of SAP. But as you can see here, the by design installed base is growing fast. Some customers now have reached really the limits of by design. They were relatively smaller, mid-sized companies when they joined the journey on by design. They have simply grown so fast that they transition now to S4. So there are a lot of tools and packages available from SAP. Please reach out to Markus Uhlich and his team for additional information. All of my leading partners like the All for One group, All for Cloud, Agilita, many of the others have their transformation packages, how you get from by design to S4HANA Public if you really reach the limits of by design. As always, SAP published just recently, Christoph Schneider, the latest version of the roadmap. Therefore, I want to take the time to say a big thank you to especially Krishna Anapati and all of the colleagues working on by design. Krishna also has responsibility for B1 development, so even more thanks for that bigger picture. but also to the colleagues of HCL. A lot of people said when SAP brought in external development resources from HCL that this will never work, this will be a catastrophe whatsoever. Not at all. Every single update was shipped flawlessly. And if you look at all of the details that have been built last year into ByDesign, this is just amazing. I'm so super proud of that team. And this explains why ByDesign is growing. That said, on the ByDesign side, many of you may have seen the article of Handelsblatt that SAP plans to take ByDesign off the price list for net new customers. It is super important to understand that this decision has nothing to do or has no impact for installed base customers. Installed base customer can continue to buy more ByDesign tenants, more ByDesign users, this and this. SAP did not announce any end to the life of ByDesign. But for net new customers, it is just more advisable if you start the journey today, start it on S4, because that is the strategic bet of SAP. I'm sure that we will also have ByDesign customers in 2030, those ones growing and who want to have a transition path to S4. As mentioned before, there are a lot of partners available and you will hear more next year about this topic. But that said, SAP has a comprehensive mid-market portfolio comprising of Business One, Business ByDesign, and obviously the big strategic workhorse of SAP, S/4HANA Public Cloud. SAP has a comprehensive data strategy and AI strategy, and I hope that you agree that this really is a great platform for the years to come. That said, thanks a lot. I wish you a fantastic 2026 and see you next year.
Hola, bueno mi gente, ahí escucharon, ahora se acabó, ahora se apagó la cámara. Ahí escucharon este video de ¿cuánto? De 29,29 minutos en el que Rainer, para los que no lo conocen, aquí lo van a ver, Rainer Zinow, y como pudieron ver, pues él explicó, compartió, vean que hay 166 reacciones, 27 comentarios, 13 veces compartido. Obviamente esta publicación es una publicación muy esperada todos los años. Saludos Miguel, un gusto por allá saludarte, Miguel Pérez. Bueno, lo que ustedes escucharon aquí, una parte tiene que ver con Business One, ¿sí? Lo escucharon por allí, como Business One pues está todavía ahí, ¿no? En el centro del, digámoslo de alguna manera, ¿no? En el centro del negocio, ¿no? Para SAP sigue siendo, por supuesto, una solución que forma parte del portafolio y que por lo tanto tiene toda la vigencia del mundo, como él mismo lo dice, ¿no? Parece que fue él, no lo sé, parece que fue él el que acuñó esta expresión de Business One Forever, por lo que estoy más o menos intuyendo, no lo tengo 100% claro, pero por lo que puedo ver, él allí, ahí estoy, por lo que puedo ver, él está mencionando que él fue el que acuñó este término, ¿no? Business One Forever. ¿Qué opinan ustedes? Bueno, yo veo que SAP, por supuesto, pues tiene una estrategia. Esa estrategia no necesariamente tiene que ser la estrategia que a nosotros nos guste. A mí, o sea, realmente me parece una estrategia lógica. No es que me guste o no me guste. O sea, veo que Business One, como decía él, ya más del 80% de la funcionalidad de Business One ya se encuentra en el web client. Habló de que los partners de Suiza ya están trabajando muy fuerte en sus extensiones para el web client, y eso es lo que nosotros deberíamos estar haciendo aquí en América Latina. O sea, nosotros aquí en América Latina lo que deberíamos estar haciendo es refactorizar todas esas aplicaciones que tenemos para el cliente nativo, lo que conocemos como add-ons o add-ons. Todo eso debería estar siendo refactorizado. Lo más importante de ahí, digo, ¿no? Lo más necesario o lo más relevante, porque hay cosas que ya prácticamente están obsoletas, pero hay que refactorizar todo eso que se tiene en código C# o Java o qué sé yo, y refactorizarlo y hacer de eso una extensión para el web client. Eso es lo que deberíamos estar haciendo. Realmente por ahí es que deberíamos estar nosotros, en eso es que deberíamos estar nosotros trabajando. Así que bueno, Rainer nos ha dado, aplauso ahí para Rainer. Rainer nos ha dado pues un paseo por lo que sería la estrategia de SAP, cómo lo ve él. Él hace esto todos los años, ¿no? Un video de 30 minutos explicando los puntos principales que él considera que todo partner y que todo profesional de SAP debe tener en su cabeza, en su mente, ¿no? Para el momento en el que estamos viviendo. Y me parece entonces muy interesante. Y habló, por supuesto, de la versión 11 de SAP Business One. Dice que ya tiene la interfaz lista y que ya la aplicación está, o sea, prácticamente lista para lanzarse muy pronto, en el periodo 2027-2028. Así que por ahora lo que les puedo decir, señores, es que tenemos producto forever, ¿no? B1 forever o Business One forever. Dice Dionisio, es fácil decirlo. Hay sistemas completos que incluso están interconectados con otros servicios. Sí, 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 tal cual. Entonces ahí vemos que SAP pues va para adelante, ¿no? SAP Business One, SAP S/4HANA Cloud Public Edition. By Design va a dejar de estar en la lista de precios para poder adquirirlo. Los clientes que ya lo tienen lo van a poder seguir disfrutando y utilizando, pero todos los clientes nuevos van a ser direccionados directamente a S/4HANA, que es lo que SAP considera. Hay un punto que mencionó Rainer que me llama muchísimo la atención, y es que SAP, SAP inició su departamento enfocado en IA en 1987, un anuncio que hizo Hasso Plattner. Acuérdense que Hasso Plattner es uno de los fundadores, uno de los 5 fundadores, y prácticamente fue el último en retirarse. Hace poquito él ya se retiró, ¿no?, de la junta directiva y se fue a casa a descansar. Me llama mucho la atención eso, porque estamos hablando de que SAP tiene un departamento investigando sobre el tema de IA desde 1987, si no me equivoco, es la fecha que él publicó allí, diciendo que, bueno, que SAP ha venido trabajando en esto, ¿no? Y siempre Rainer tiene contacto con clientes finales y por eso él tiene muchas experiencias, porque le toca hablar con los clientes y discutir un poco, ¿no? Estas cosas que los clientes le dicen, bueno, mira, siento esto, siento aquello, siento lo otro, ¿no? Si gente que de pronto le plantea a Rainer eh, cuáles son sus impresiones, ¿no?, sobre lo que está haciendo SAP. Pero bueno, ahí Rainer siempre nos comparte el tema. Yo les digo nuevamente, señores, aquí lo importante es empezar ya, si es que ya no empezamos, a refactorizar todo lo que nosotros hacemos en el cliente nativo y hacerlo disponible para el web client. ¿Por qué? Porque eso nos va a permitir despegarnos, independizarnos del escritorio remoto. ¿Sí? No porque sea malo, sino por temas de agilidad. Despegarnos del escritorio remoto, poder trabajar directamente en la nube, ser homogéneos en eso, ser portables, no depender de una conexión, VPN, escritorio remoto, no sé cuánto, o sea, nos va a dar más agilidad. Y acuérdense que con Joule y con la IA, fíjense que él mencionó a MyWave también como la solución de IA, ¿no? Pero les digo, el asunto es este. El web client te va a independizar, ¿no?, del escritorio, permitiéndote trabajar desde cualquier lugar y desde cualquier dispositivo. Y lo otro es que con la IA, con los agentes de IA, como los de MyWave, como Joule, ¿no?, como otros que existen en el mercado, hay uno que está en Brasil, Sky One lanzó ya su agente, no me acuerdo si se llama Robert, creo. Y así sucesivamente. Acuérdense que Seidor también sacó su agente que está, se accede mediante WhatsApp, que es Vero, ¿no? Pero bueno, en términos generales, eso debería permitir que nosotros nos despeguemos del frontend. Es decir, que utilicemos agentes de IA para el trabajo del día a día y no tengamos que estar nosotros sentados muchas horas ahí frente a la computadora cuando podemos estar moviéndonos, ¿no?, de un lugar a otro con un dispositivo en la mano, una tablet, un celular. Pero bueno, lo dice Rainer, no lo digo yo. El producto ya tiene poco más del 80% de la funcionalidad del cliente nativo. Para Windows ya está disponible en el web client y bueno, hay que ir desarrollando localización, lo que sea, ¿no? Todo el tema de aplicaciones que se utilizan en cada una de las empresas que usan SAP Business One. Quería compartirles este video con subtítulos en español para que ustedes pues se enteraran de lo que está diciendo SAP, porque Rainer es alguien, digamos que Rainer es un vocero principal dentro del equipo global de SAP. Él está directamente ahí pegado a la junta directiva, al comité directivo, ¿no?, al CEO. O sea, él tiene una cercanía muy, pero muy, digamos, muy fuerte con la dirección principal, la cabeza de SAP, y por eso es un contacto muy importante. Yo les decía que tuve el placer de conocerlo allá en Alemania, ay, se me fue el nombre, donde están las oficinas de SAP, ¿no? En Alemania. Bueno, ahí. Se me fue ahorita el nombre. En Waldorf. Así que es un tipo muy humilde, muy inteligente, muy alto, por cierto, muy cariñoso. Una persona entrañable que ya está, ¿no?, en la rampa de su despegue. Voy a ver si consigo una entrevista en español con él. Voy a ver si puedo hacer que me dé una entrevista, ¿no?, ya más a título personal, que nos cuente un poquito de su historia, cómo él, pues, digamos, cómo él inició en SAP hace un montón de años. Estaba hablando de los años 90 y algo, 91 creo que fue cuando él empezó en SAP en el año 91. También mencionó a Darius, mencionó a Peter Dominic, mencionó a varias personas que están, por supuesto, involucradas no solamente en el producto SAP Business One, sino en el resto del portafolio. Entonces, señores, un aplauso para SAP Business One, porque hay SAP Business One para siempre. Dependerá también de nosotros que le demos toda la potencia, toda la flexibilidad, digamos, toda la viabilidad, ¿no? Porque hay gente que de pronto, en vez de colaborar, pues como que obstruye, ¿no? Tenemos que sumar, facilitar, ayudar a las empresas a adoptar Business One Cloud, aprovechar las últimas versiones de SAP. Eso es lo importante para mantener el código limpio. Nos va a permitir poder aprovechar las últimas versiones de SAP. Y bueno, vamos a ver qué nos trae SAP Business One 2602. Estamos a un mes, aproximadamente, sí, un mes, ¿no?, de que salga el FP 2602, y con ello vamos a ver algo de inteligencia artificial integrado allí mismo. Si ustedes se fijan, Rainer en ningún momento habló de Joule sobre SAP Business One, pero eso no significa que ellos no estén conscientes de eso, o no significa que no haya compatibilidad. Eso ya está demostrado. Más tarde voy a trabajar un ratito con Joule en vivo para que ustedes vayan viendo, ¿no?, varias cosillas con respecto a Joule, de las que he venido compartiendo. Así que bueno, gente, espero que este video de Rainer les dé un panorama general de lo que SAP está viendo hacia el futuro, cómo están ellos enfocando el producto, cómo nosotros vamos a seguir allí trabajando, ¿no? Cómo vamos a seguir nosotros sumando, y cómo SAP Business One es para siempre, mi gente. Así que bueno, cuídense mucho. Nuevamente, este ya sería mi segundo video del día, reaccionando a la publicación de Rainer. Y nos vemos en un ratito más con otro video donde nos vamos a enfocar en Joule Studio. Cuídense mucho.
Gracias por acompañarnos en esta transmisión. Te invitamos a suscribirte a nuestro canal de YouTube Activa la campanita para que no te pierdas las próximas sesiones. No olvides regalarnos un like y compartir este video en tus redes sociales.